Welcome, everybody, to another edition of In Conversation. We've all gone through the same thing, and some of us have gone through this same thing differently in the last 2.5 years, and we're all trying to come out of it. Of course, it's the pandemic, and there's such a key to this with the physical and the mental aspect of people. And my guest today is somebody who can help a lot of people with this as we try to recover from what's been a real tough 2.5 years. His name is Dr. Nick Rolnick, owner of the Human Performance Mechanics. So much to get into. I've learned so much in the last couple of weeks as we've been trying to get this thing together. How you doing, Nick? Welcome to the show.
I'm doing well. Thank you again, Ryan, for having me. Really appreciate the opportunity and the platform to discuss things that I'm really, really passionate about. So thank you.
That's such a key thing, right? The passion. I watched a video of you on YouTube, and you had a shirt on called it was hashtag Chase the Pump. And I listened to you and I watched it, and I saw the energy, saw the enthusiasm, and especially with what you do, that's so key, isn't it?
I am extremely fortunate to wake up every morning and be able to help people with their health or with, optimizing their performance. So as a physical therapist and a personal trainer, I live and breathe this stuff. And it really, the more I understand about the beneficial effects of physical activity, the more I value my position in society as somebody who promotes exercise as the primary means to optimize health and performance. So
sports has been in your blood, athletics, whatever it is, working out, keeping healthy physically and mentally. Take us back a little bit into kind of how you got to the point where you thought, okay, now I really want to get into this more, and I can use the tools that I have and that I've learned to help people to feel like I do.
Yeah. So, if we're really throwing it back, back in high school, I started to explore my love of weightlifting and strength training, playing baseball and wrestling. And if anybody who knows a wrestler or is a wrestler, that is one of the most humbling sports that there is,
I bet.
because you push your body to the limit and you can really take away a lot of life lessons from what you learn out on the mat. But that's where I kind of started to really enjoy exercise, because there was a purpose. And for me, that purpose was trying to become an all-section wrestler, which I was ultimately able to succeed my senior season. And as a result of that, I actually ended up getting a puppy, which, which was like the main driver at that point.
Yeah.
But then I went to college and played college baseball, still enjoyed strength training and the benefits there, but really never took the time to take a deep dive into physical activity and how it impacts, your health and longevity, really, until I graduated. And my mom, believe it or not, found a job for me because I graduated college, didn't really know what I wanted to do. She was like, "Oh, you like fitness? Okay, here, cool. Here's an aide job at a physical therapy clinic." And I'm like, I've never been to physical therapy before. Like, what is that? Like, I was always, with the athletic trainers because of my baseball background and dealing with my orthopedic issues there. And when I got to this clinic, and it was in Cobb, Connecticut, I was just overcome with this urge, this desire to become a part of that community, because I saw the way that the physical therapist was able to not only help somebody back from an injury, but also being able to optimize their longevity and their health through education. And at that point, I took classes at night for a year and a half. And then I went to get my master's degree in health promotion, because I felt that there was a need to understand why people make the health behavior decisions that they make, and ultimately how to circumvent that to allow for their healthy behaviors to really come through, and understanding that. And that's kind of where my philosophy that I view fitness and rehabilitation really began to take form. And that is, I've been always fascinated since I began to learn about the human body, about the benefits um, of exercise, but ultimately the philosophy of balance and how balance. My dogs are in the background.
He's agreeing.
Of course, yeah, they're agreeing. But the concept of balance and how being in equilibrium is the optimal form of health.
Right.
And the second thing really is that pain is the enemy, our ability to combat that. One second. Let me just.
It's all good. Nick Rolnick with us, going through the competitive balance and of the mental aspect and the physical aspect of human performance. So tons to get into. So carry on, Nick. As soon as you get back, totally get the whole thing when it comes to the animals, because I've had my dog a few times over the last 2.5 years do the same thing.
It's amazing because they don't do anything all day.
I know.
And then the 10, 15, 20 minutes that I need them to be quiet, where they're normally sleeping throughout the entire day, they're all of a sudden bursting with energy.
Yeah.
So it's just unbelievable. But yeah, getting back to what I was saying, I've been fascinated by the concept of balance,
right,
and how balance and equilibrium is so important for recovering and ultimately performing at whatever you want to do. And secondly, that pain is something that nobody wants, right? Everybody wants to be able to be in balance and not have any pain. And secondly, or thirdly, is I believe through all of the studies and the knowledge that I've gained that I view the body as kind of like a machine, and a machine that has been that coordinates its many moving parts to work in equilibrium to optimize performance and get people to do whatever they need to do. But just like a car that breaks down and you need to bring it to a mechanic to get fixed, where the mechanic goes through and does the whole diagnostic to come up with the problem, the human body, unfortunately, as amazing as it is, cannot really self-correct after something happens, whether it's an injury or whatnot, like that's causing pain. And so really, I view myself as not just a physical therapist and a personal trainer, but more like the human performance mechanic, because my job and my passion is to look at the whole picture and find where the imbalances are for those that I'm seeing in rehabilitation. That tends to be where the pain, what is the cause of the pain? Because a lot of people end up just treating or trying to just treat the location that the pain is located in. But ultimately, in a lot of different cases, that pain is just a symptom of some sort of imbalance that's in the system. So that is kind of, how I believe the human body is, and it's fascinating. And especially when we talk about physical activity and how important that is in not only maintaining, homeostasis or equilibrium and balance, but really in terms of staving off disease and other negative effects that can happen from a imbalance in the system.
We'll get into BFR, blood flow restriction, in just a second, because that's key. But what do you say to those people? And I'm sure you've dealt with a lot of them over the years, and especially, I guess, in the last 2.5, as we're trying to get back to what we were before, whatever that is. What do you say to the people that say, Nick, I've tried so many things, I don't see myself getting any better, I don't feel any improvement? What's your pitch to them to say, look, if you kind of listen to me, here's what I can do that's something different than you've done before?
Well, I think there's the most important thing when you're trying to make a behavior change is understanding that it is a process. And it's not a complete switch, like an on-off switch. So what I mean by that is, if you're looking to, you packed on the COVID-19,
right,
and you're really like looking for ways to get that off. Well, my biggest suggestion is start small. Make small, seemingly what you would think would be insignificant or inconsequential decisions. For example, like if you need to drive, maybe try to get a bicycle and bike to where you need to go. And if that's
Mhm.
not practical for
Mhm.
whatever reason, then maybe park at the end of the lot and walk, because all of these non-directed resistance training or aerobic exercise is all going to, give you or shift your body back into balance. And so making small behavior decisions is crucial, because a lot of the times when you look at the research on dieting and lifestyle behavior change, after 6 months, the vast majority end up failing,
Right.
because they end up looking at their weight loss as, I need to hit a particular, weight, and then, oh my gosh, once I get there, I'm done.
Right.
I can come off the diet. And
Right.
instead, if you make those small decisions to start walking a little bit more, or maybe instead of having soda every night, I switch to diet soda. So
Mm.
now at least you're slowly titrating yourself off and becoming healthier in the process, such that now after 6 months, you've now made small decisions that now amount to significant changes in your lifestyle. And you might not necessarily even need to hit the gym as aggressively as you might think, because a lot of people get overwhelmed, the people that I
Yeah.
work with,
Yeah.
where they're saying, oh, I'm going to go on a diet, or I'm now have this strength goal. Now I need to lift 5 times a week, and I need to hit cardio 3 times a week. And if I don't do that, what ends up happening? You start to feel this, oh, like I'm already failing. And
Yeah.
so I don't want people to get into that mindset. And as as seemingly inconsequential as it may seem, once you start to make those decisions and you start to stick with them, because they're very easy to stick with, right? I just need to park further away and I need to walk. Now all
Right.
of a sudden you start building up self-efficacy. And self-efficacy is the belief that you can accomplish something that you set your mind to. And it's much easier to do that when you build up over time, because if not, then you get into a situation where you're then going to be working around the clock at trying to maintain, versus building that up and getting comfortable with what will ultimately be a lifestyle decision.
It's about the small steps, hopefully leading to bigger ones, right? And continued big steps down the road. Let's get into the BFR, the blood flow restriction, because another part of people trying to feel better about themselves, going back to what you said about going to the gym, you're lifting heavy weights. It's very strenuous. It's straining, draining on your body kind of thing. But this is something completely different. So kind of take those people who don't know what it is into that for us.
Yeah, I love BFR. Obviously, it is a tool that that is growing rapidly and approaching mainstream, and it was actually developed over 50 years ago by a guy named Yoshiaki Sato in Japan,
Mhm.
and he was, long story short, trying to he was sitting in a Buddhist temple and on his knees and started to feel this pump sensation. And for one reason or another, he was like, oh, this is like how I get when I do strenuous calf exercise. And he then decided that he was going to wrap his leg, his proximal most portion of the leg, and then start to do exercise and restrict blood flow. And lo and behold, that was the birth of
Hmm.
KATSU, or added pressure training. And BFR is the Western equivalent of KATSU training. And if you haven't heard, Olympians have been using it
Mhm.
last year at the games. It was one of the hot topics like 5 years ago. Now it was cupping.
Yep.
Now it was blood flow restriction. But the difference between cupping and blood flow restriction is that blood flow restriction has a substantial body of evidence that's supporting its use, and it's growing seemingly every day. And what blood flow restriction training does is it replicates that pump. That sensation where when you're lifting moderate to heavy weights, you
Mhm.
feel the skin stretching from the blood flow that's accumulating inside of your exercising limb. And that pump is really the visible sensation that we're creating a stimulus to promote positive adaptation. And with BFR, then, yeah, so with BFR, we can then take light loads and replicate the same feeling as moderate to heavy strength training without all the taxing on the joints.
Which is amazing. How can anyone do it? I'm sure anyone can, but is there a process where you have to get looked at to be a candidate for it, or can anybody just do this? Say I wanted to do it, for example, after I get off this conversation with you. Am I able to do that quickly?
I mean, believe it or not, there are really no restrictions
Mm-hmm.
on whether or not anybody, you could do blood flow restriction by yourself. I would suggest that, you get seen by somebody who is trained in blood flow restriction training. Part of my passion, because I've been personally affected by blood flow restriction and my patients have been affected by blood flow restriction in a positive way,
Mm-hmm.
that I want that to continue the safe growth of blood flow restriction training. And so we created a website, www.bfrproviders.com, which is a worldwide database where people like you can go and say, okay, I want to learn how to do BFR. Where are people that have been trained
Right.
in blood flow restriction training around my area? And that, to me, that's a very big passion project, because exactly like what you said, like people are doing BFR. The research has shown that it's relatively well tolerated and safe across a variety of different populations. But there are a small segment of the populations, those that tend to have comorbidities like hypertension, obesity, diabetes, and more so when you have coexisting pathologies. So like
Mm-hmm.
if you're obese and have hypertension, then the risk of potentially having a negative short-term effect like excessive soreness or a number of smaller effects goes up. And so it's much easier for people that are looking to pick it up to just go to somebody who has been trained, and they can help you by screening you and making sure that you're safe to perform blood flow restriction training, and then help guide you.
Sounds incredible. So, again, when I started this discussion with you, we've all been through COVID. Still going through it. Still, it's always going to be there, I think. So, what has the response been, and how tough has it been for you over the last 2.5 years, for example? Dealing with your patients and trying to get them to get the sense that they can come out of whatever they're in. Because let's face it, some of us have been in this thing worse than others.
Yeah, I mean, my patients are very committed and motivated, and I'm very fortunate enough to have access to seeing them via telehealth, at least certainly with COVID, and now in person. And so, with blood flow restriction or not, the goal during the COVID crisis was to stimulate our body and
Right.
keep it in balance. If it is in balance, for those are my personal training clients, and making sure that I'm programming exercises to keep them in balance, or for my rehab clients to help them get out of pain, of which BFR might be a strategy. So what I tell people, just like I mentioned before, that making small steps is so crucial, because it might take a little bit longer, but it taking a little bit longer is actually going to be more beneficial for you in the long run, because
Right.
now when you make a significant health behavior decision that will really impact it, you've already now backed it up on multiple different smaller decisions. And so it becomes less daunting and less overwhelming. And that's the messaging that I give to all of my patients and clients: is start small and then build.
It's amazing. I was just thinking as you were answering that question that, even this platform that I'm doing with you, it's a small thing, right? But it could mean a bigger thing for somebody watching, listening, whatever it is. So I kind of, in a way, feel like I'm part of this with you, at least doing this chat. Where can people find you? Websites, et cetera, different things like that.
Yeah, well, I mentioned before, if you're interested in blood flow restriction training, I know we didn't really get into the nitty gritty of it, but you can certainly understand what it's about if you go to www.bfrproviders.com. That is a website that has all of the trained providers that put their information in, so you can find somebody that's local to you. If my personal clinic in website is www.thehpmny.com. But I'm really active on Instagram, and I go into some detail about the benefits of exercise and everything else. And that is the HPM, short for the Human Performance Mechanic. And then via email, if anybody wants to email me, it's just nick@thehpmny.com.
You're doing some great things. Last one, kind of a fun thing too, because I was reading up about you and you talked a bit off the top about your love of baseball and wrestling, but you were born in Chicago, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, and you were raised in New York. So I want to talk baseball quickly. Two teams in Chicago, two teams in New York. Do you have any allegiance to either or what?
So when I was younger, and I was closely following the NBA, it was, of course, the Chicago Bulls,
Of course,
time and time again.
Yeah.
And then with baseball specifically, I was always a Mets fan. And as all Mets fans that are listening probably understand, the amount of just about almost World
Yeah.
I've kind of became disenfranchised from that because I would follow it so vigorously, and then all of a sudden October comes, and then
crushed.
Yeah, and so it was just it was too many of those. So I don't, I follow the Mets. They're having a good season this year. Do I as closely follow them as I used to? No, but I would say that I'm a Mets fan by heart, and occasionally will entertain watching the Yankees, but don't tell that to the Mets fans.
No, not at all. You just lost a lot of followers who are Mets fans right now, based on that. Nick, great stuff. I really appreciate this. I learned a lot. Again, Nick's website, the Human Performance Mechanic, thehpmny.com. And congrats on all you've done and what you continue to do for people. Because at the end of the day, if you can help someone in their life, it helps your life, and it probably puts a smile on your face and theirs as well. So thanks again for doing this.
Again, thank you for the platform and the opportunity to chat about what I love, and hope you have a great rest of your day.
All right, Dr. Nick Rolnick, we'll take a time out, and we'll continue with another edition of In Conversation after this.